last night in the desert, looking at the stars, eating your amazing food. So I feel so blessed to be here. I'm going to talk about an idea that I've been dabbling with. It's about the new age of entrepreneurship. I think we're going through a massive shift in how the world functions today, and the way we define entrepreneurship and the way we operate as entrepreneurs has to go through this shift as well. See, today, whether you are working on your own business or, as Gary Vaynerchuk said, you're number 2 or number 5 or number 7 in someone else's company, we're obsessed with a couple of things. We're obsessed with how do we get more done in less time. We're obsessed with how do we have great ideas flow. And if you look at all of these talented individuals who are building startups or working for startups, you find that every now and then there are these outliers, there are these people who seem to be doing something different, and thus they seem to be skyrocketing at a much faster rate than others. And I was obsessed with this. I wanted to find out what was going on here. So I run an education company, and what this meant is I had the luxury of being able to go out and interview hundreds upon hundreds of incredible men and women, from Richard Branson to people like Arianna Huffington, to try to understand what was going on through their head. And that is essentially what Mindvalley does. We are a university for transformation. But in that process, the beautiful thing is, I sometimes go through my own transformation. And a big pivot for me happened 3 years ago. So, as you know, many people who are trying to do good things in the world, they have their mentors. Luke Skywalker has his Yoda. Harry Potter has Dumbledore. Peter Parker has Tony Stark. I have a mentor. His name is Sri Kumar Rao. I call him my Yoda. And he's a famous MBA professor. He teaches at Columbia, teaches at London Business School, at Kellogg, at Haas. Really brilliant man. So one day, I was going through a really rough patch in my entrepreneurship journey. Things were just not going right. So I had my call with Sri Kumar, and he asked me, Vishen, you seem so off. What's going on? And I just let out on him everything. The anxiety, the stress, my back was hurting. I was not getting the support I needed. We were losing money in a particular division. Investors were not calling back, and I went on and on and on. And he calmly just listened, as Yoda would do. And then he said, Vishen, just be quiet for a second, and I want to read you a poem. And in my mind, I'm thinking, seriously, I don't need a poem. I need anxiety pills. I need venture funding. You want to read me a poem? But of course, I let him just read me the poem. And this is the poem that he read. Some of you may recognize this. Go through it with me. When I run after what I think I want, my days are a furnace of distress and anxiety. But if I sit in my own place of patience, what I need flows to me, and without any pain. The poem goes on. From this I understand that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. There's a great secret in this for anyone who can grasp it. This poem was written in the 13th century by an Afghan refugee by the name of Jalal al-Din Rumi. Today, he's known as Rumi. Incidentally, Rumi today is the most popular poet in the United States, but back then, 700 years ago, he was an Afghan refugee fleeing war, and he penned some of the most beautiful truths about the world. Now, there was something that shifted when this insight came to me. In the next 3 years, so many things changed in my business. We had a dream of launching a university, and investors had told us, to quote, "That is the dumbest idea I have ever heard of for a radical new university design." But we launched without investors, and it took off. My book, which I had just released, suddenly started doing well. My app doubled in revenue. My book hit the #1 book on Amazon globally. And all of this just happened to come true, as if things were blessed, as if things were easy. And because I'm an engineer, I always try to understand what is going on. So I tried to dissect this, and I want to share with you some of the things that I discovered. And maybe to help explain why there was so much truth in that poem from Rumi. But here's the funny thing, right? Not only was the business doing well, but my health transformed. You see, often we hear that to be an entrepreneur, you're gonna have gray hair, or if you have any hair at all, you're gonna end up with more stress, with more anxiety, it's gonna wear you down. But in the last 3 years, I actually got biologically younger. I shared this picture on my Instagram. I ended up losing 8 kilograms. My body fat went from 22% to 14%. I actually, as tested by doctors, got biologically younger. And not only me, but the majority of people on my team, 90% of the people in our 300-person company actually got healthier. And as a result, even more incredible people started joining our company. So what I want to talk about is that shift. And remember, I was struggling for a long time. My company wasn't a very successful company. For our first 10 years at Mindvalley, we were barely breaking even. I would wake up some days wondering, why am I doing this? But often, when the right piece of insight hits you and that shift happens, you learn that lesson that you want to learn. And the point of this presentation is to share with you some of the mistakes I made so you can avoid them, and some of the insights I got from great mentors like Rumi or Rao, so that you can think about how these insights might apply to your business as well. And that brings us to the new age of entrepreneurship. So to understand, I first need to tell you about Maslow's pyramid. Anyone here heard of Abraham Maslow and his pyramid of human needs? It's basic psychology, right? Maslow said that all of us as human beings have a hierarchy of needs. And these needs really are dependent on the country, the culture that you grow up in. The poorer your country, the poorer the culture you grow up in, the lower the needs. So if you look at where we are today in the UAE is actually officially on happiness rankings the 20th happiest country in the world. So please give yourselves a round of applause. That is incredible. UAE, within the margin of error, is right up there with the United States and the United Kingdoms. It's one of the wealthiest, one of the happiest countries in the world. And as a result, when you look at the hierarchy of needs, entrepreneurs in the UAE are actually operating at a very different level. You see, business, entrepreneurship, work is done to provide our needs. And if you're in a poor country, the needs are food, the needs are shelter, the needs are clothing. It's about hard work, it's about struggle, it's about back-breaking work. As countries get richer, the needs evolve. If you look at maybe the last generation, it was about love, it was about belonging, it was about showing that this country could go somewhere. And as beautiful Dubai emerges, and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, and these become global cities. Dubai right now, I believe, is the 5th most visited city in the world. The needs change. Now, as the need for belonging, the need for love, your culture is global and popular and famous, it becomes about esteem. It becomes about proving and knowing that you have that worth. When you are starting a company or doing work for esteem, this is where you're doing work for the recognition. You're working on Wall Street 100 hours, breaking your back, but you know you're gonna be wealthy. You're gonna get your startup or your company in the press, and you know you're gonna be significant. But again, we're moving into a world where we are going even beyond that. We're moving right now in this generation into the top 2 aspects of Maslow's pyramid, and that is self-actualization and the layer above. Now, self-actualization, if you can read that, it means achieving one's full potential. What if the point of work is going to soon be not about your credentials, not about the money in your bank account, but about your true potential, about who you become as a human being? And what happens if we go even higher? What happens if we go to self-transcendence? What if work is not about the rate of return on your investment dollar only, but the meaning, the benefit, the plus that you give humanity? I believe we're entering this new age, and when you think about this updated pyramid of needs, you find that how we operate as entrepreneurs has to go through a massive up-leveling. This is what I'd like to share with you guys. So first, let's talk about self-actualization, achieving your full potential. Yesterday, Najla said this: it's not just dividends, but a growth mindset that will bring dividends forever. A growth mindset is self-actualization. And Rao, as I mentioned, my mentor, once came to me and he shared with me this really interesting insight. He came to me and he said, so he lives in America, he's an American but was born in India, so he has this thick Indian accent. And he said, Vishen, business schools don't get it. And I'm like, Rao, what do you mean? He goes, they are not teaching the right thing. And I go, but come on, Rao, Harvard, Stanford, they're producing all of these amazing entrepreneurs. And Rao says, no, they don't get it. So I said, explain. And he said this, he said, look, we are training entrepreneurs, we are training business people to think that the most important thing is their business. It's not the business. So I said, well, what is it? He goes, people don't get it. The most important thing is not your business. The most important thing is your growth. Your business is nothing more than a vehicle for your growth. He says, if your business fails, it doesn't matter. Did you grow? If your business hits $1 billion, it doesn't matter. Did you grow? And that led to another keen insight, which I call the first rule of new entrepreneurship. And it says this, your business is not about your business. Rather, your business is nothing more than a vehicle for your personal growth. In other words, what if the point of being an entrepreneur is not just to build a business, but to build yourself? What if it's not just about your product or your service or the mama's box? What if you, in the process, are a product? What if you are the service? What if you become a better version of yourself through the pursuit of this product or this service? See, there's a great wisdom there, because when you think about it this way, business doesn't break you. Business grows you. So, when we start looking at business from that way, we are now operating at a different level of Maslow's pyramid. We are looking at self-actualization of who we really are. Now, what I'm going to teach you here are a simple set of tools. I call them Blisscipline. It is the discipline of bliss. It is the discipline of ensuring that as you build your business, you are in a blissful state, and that you are growing, that you as a product is growing as much as the product that you are selling to the market. But now, let's go on to the second aspect, right? Which is self-transcendence. Self-transcendence means finding your sense of meaning in the world. And I want to share with you rule number 2. Rule number 2 of the new entrepreneurship is this. Your life is not about you. Rather, your life is about the lives of every single human being you touch. What if your business, your existence, your life has nothing to do with you, but you approach it from the point of view that whatever you do is for other people? I call that rule number 2. And that is what we mean by self-transcendence. See, we are entering a new era of human collaboration. The age of individuality died tens of years ago. Today, any product that you want to get out, any business, even a book, people do it as a team. And we need to start remembering that it's no longer about us. It's about all of us. That's what self-transcendence means. It means living life beyond just yourself, beyond just your pocketbook, beyond just your title or glory, but doing work so that you can benefit the human race. Now, the tool for this that I will share with you is a simple idea called envisioning. It's the concept of envisioning a better vision for humanity based on your personal values and mission. We will come to that in a moment. So now, if you think about the mindset of the ideal entrepreneur, right? It really looks something like this. It's a delicate balance between blisscipline on one hand and envisioning on the other. Bliss and envisioning. In other words, the idea of self-care, of happiness, of joy, and the idea of having a bold vision, not just for yourself, but for the human race. Now, with this balance, you find that we can exist in 4 different states as an entrepreneur. The first state is not very good. The first state would be the lower end of that pyramid. The negative spiral. This is where you have no bliss and you have no vision. When you're in a negative spiral, life just seems painful and hard. It feels as if things are just going downwards. You need the right connections. You need the right friends. You might need the right doctor or therapist to pull you out. But there's a second level, and that second level, beyond the negative spiral, is what is called the current reality trap. Now, the current reality trap is interesting. It means you have bliss. You are happy, you are healthy, you are joyful every day, but you aren't giving back to the world. It's called a current reality trap because happiness is different from fulfillment. You can get happy on a drug, but you will never be fulfilled unless, I believe, we are fulfilling our soul's mission, which is to contribute, to grow, to give back. I call it the current reality trap because many people live lives where they are happy. They are the positive person, but they aren't doing anything to push forth the human race. But then there's the majority of entrepreneurs in the room. They have the vision. They have that vision for who they want to be, the company they want to build, the next milestone, but they lack the happiness. In this scenario, they're at what you call stress and anxiety. This, people, is 90% of entrepreneurs and hard workers in the world. They are so committed to that vision that they have forgotten that the joy needs to come from the journey. They are waiting to hit the next goal for revenue before they can celebrate. They are waiting for that new investment round before they can feel like a success. They are waiting for that new office to open up before they can pop that champagne and feel blissed out. There's a danger here because if you cannot enjoy the journey, you are never going to be very good at moving towards your goals. We'll come to that in a moment. Now, the ideal state is where you have both of these elements. You have the bliss, you have the self-care, but you also have the bold mission. I call this state bending reality. And this, I believe, is what the Rumi was talking about. It's the state where you are so enjoying the journey. You have the goal, but your happiness is not tied to the goal. You're happy now. And it almost feels when you're in this state that life seems to flow elegantly towards the goal without anxiety, without stress. People who exist in this state tend to talk about how they feel lucky, how it feels as if the wind has their back. This is the great secret that I believe Rumi was talking about. So you guys want to figure out how to get there? This is what we mean by Blisscipline. Blisscipline is a practice. It's a self-care practice. Now you want to remember rule number one. Your business is not about you. Your business, rather, is nothing more than a vehicle for your personal growth. This rule is so important because according to Gallup, 85% of people working today globally are disengaged from their jobs. Think about that. 85% of the human race is spending 70% of their waking hours disengaged, bored, or actively disengaged with their work. Actively disengaged means you so dislike your work that you're actually deliberately trying to mess it up for your company. That's 85% of the human race. Something is broken about how we think about work. But science says the opposite. So in Sean Akers' famous book, right, The Happiness Advantage, he says that our brains are literally hardwired to perform at their best, not when they are negative or neutral, but when they are positive. He gives so much evidence. Salespeople do better when they are optimistic rather than pessimistic. Kids do better in exam scores when they are happy. This one was fascinating. When you're happy, when you're joyful, if you're a doctor, you make 19% better diagnoses. You know how they conducted this study? Before they sent the doctor to go see a patient, they gave the doctor a lollipop. That's it. A simple lollipop to change the doctor's state. Diagnosis accuracy went up 19%. It didn't take AI or robotics. It took a lollipop. So the next time you go to see a doctor, you give the doctor a lollipop. So the first thing is, understand that your happiness must come now. And to do this, as an entrepreneur, you got to be really aware of your mental states. Your mental states are incredibly important. Now, your mental states don't just mean that you are perpetually happy. Okay, we're not talking about that. What it means is that you have an essence called positive optimism. Positive optimism means even when bad things happen, you know you're going to be okay. See, 2 weeks ago, my parents' house burned down. Part of the house burned down. My parents had to escape from the roof. My mother thought she was going to die. My mother was in hospital for 9 days, my father for 7 days. Now they're living with me. They can't move back to their house. And so this last 2 weeks should have been a really negative time for my family. But if you look at my mom, you look at my dad, you look at myself, we're okay. We just feel blessed that nobody got seriously hurt. My mom was in hospital for 9 days as they were pumping out like smoke and carbon from her lungs and the chemicals that she had breathed in. And the house is unlivable right now. But nobody got hurt. That's positive optimism. It's knowing that even in tragedy, you can find good meaning and you can learn from that and shift your life. So having positive optimism, having happiness, being able to set daily goals, being able to meditate, bringing in practices like gratitude are all an essential part of being an entrepreneur. But we forget that. We wake up in the morning and rush to our meeting, forgetting the importance of journaling or meditation or even expressing gratitude or praying for the joy that we have. And again, the science around this is astonishing. Just gratitude alone. Gratitude alone has the highest correlation with human well-being than any other characteristic. Science shows that gratitude will give you more energy, higher emotional intelligence, more forgiving attitudes, less depression, less anxiousness, feeling more socially connected, better sleep, and fewer headaches. 3 minutes a day. And you unleash superpowers in yourself. And what do you do in these 3 minutes? You simply express thanks. You can pray to God, you can write it down in your journal, but you simply express thanks for what you have. All of these are elements of discipline. We don't have time to go deep into every single one of them, but you guys get the idea. These are an essential toolkit to being an entrepreneur. I would say more important than venture, more important than just getting the right team. You and your self-care and your bliss are part of that toolkit. Now another toolkit that's really important is who do you work with? I always hire people who have a great attitude, people whom I love spending time with. So our teams tend to be so joyous, they connect so well, and there's a reason for this. In another Gallup study, what they showed is that people who answer yes to the question, I have a best friend at work, are 7 times more engaged at their jobs. And that applies to you as well. If you have a best friend at work, if you're working with people who truly care about you, whom you truly care about, your job becomes easier to do. And so the other aspect, in addition to your mental faculty, is the people around you. There was a study on this as well. Harvard did a study. They tried to find out what correlates to human happiness. Only one thing: the strength of your social connections. Look around the people over here for a moment. Just look left and right. It is the strength of the connections around you, the people you know, the people who greet you in the morning, the friend, the coworker who brings you a cup of coffee when they go down for their own cup of coffee, that truly lead to happiness, not money. There was no correlation with money, not incredibly warm weather, not riches. It was nothing more than people, a 0.7 correlation according to Harvard. Now the other aspect that you want to bring in is simply your rate of learning. I love this quote from Muhammad Alaba yesterday. He says, your phone gets updated every 3 weeks and you should update your mind faster than this. As an entrepreneur, are you reading inspirational works that help give you a better way to dream? Are you taking online courses, not just on skills like programming, but on things that make you a better human being? Health, nutrition, mindfulness. When you bring all of these practices in, you simply become better at what you do. Now the final tip for discipline is this. We have this obsession in our culture, and I see this with so many entrepreneurs, where they feel they need to prove themselves by the value of their car. I've heard these excuses. If I don't buy a Mercedes-Benz, my clients aren't going to take me seriously. But it's funny. I know so many people who invest so much money in the outward luxury, the fancy watch, the fancy car, but they will not pay a few $100 for a gym membership. What if your body vehicle is far more important? What if, rather than the fancy car, you want to ensure that you're in prime health? In our office, we ensure we bring in fitness coaches so everybody in our team holds each other accountable for working out. How are you trained and how are you looking after the food that you put in your body? Are you eating healthy? Do you have a nutrition coach? How are you taking care of your sleep? Here's another interesting study. So there's this myth outside, right? That to be a great entrepreneur, you gotta cut down on sleep. Sleep is for losers. Even Donald Trump says he only gets 5 minutes of sleep a day. Turns out, according to K. Anders Ericsson, the famous Swedish psychologist who studied super performers, he's the guy who kind of came up with that idea of the 10,000 hours rule, right? So in the 10,000 hours rule, which Malcolm Gladwell popularized, K. Anders Ericsson said something else which was really interesting. He found that the best performers sleep an average of 8 hours and 36 minutes a night. 8 hours and 36 minutes. How many of you here sleep 8.5 hours or more a night? All 10 of you. Turns out the average American sleeps 6 hours and 50 minutes. That's undersleeping. And if you cut down your sleep by 90 minutes, your cognitive performance at work actually goes down 30%. You are 30% less effective. So all that stuff you see from entrepreneurs who talk about overworking and hard work is rubbish, people. It doesn't help. Beyond 50 hours, there's very additional gain in productivity. So why then does hard work come in? I just opened up Instagram yesterday and this is what I saw, right? Starting a business, running a business. That's bullshit. My business makes me healthier. Elon Musk spoke about how he and his brother work 100-hour weeks. I love Elon Musk, but that's bad advice. Have you guys been following what's happening to Musk lately? In his expose on the New York Times, he's talking about how he cannot sleep, he needs drugs to get to bed, he's overworked, he's burnt out, he had to step down. You have to ensure that self-care, that discipline is part of this regimen. Sometimes men like Elon Musk, I've spoken to him, I've asked him questions, I have a different theory for why he's so effective, but don't do his example of overwork. Your business, if you plan this well, will make you younger and healthier and will not age you. So that is the first element, discipline. Can you guys do that? So remember, discipline is one element, but there's a second ingredient that's very important to you as an entrepreneur. And again, when I say entrepreneur, I am not meaning that you have to be a founder. I loved what Gary said yesterday. To be an entrepreneur is a mindset. You can be doing it while working for another company. You can be doing it while you're in a university or a school. So when I say entrepreneur, know that that's what I mean. Now, the second thing is called envisioning. That is me. I grew up in Malaysia. I live in Malaysia now. So Mind Valley is actually a company based in Malaysia. That's my mom and my family. And when I grew up, growing up in an Indian family, there was a lot of pressure if you grow up in an Indian immigrant family. Because my family, when they moved from India to Malaysia, they had to struggle so much being immigrants to survive. So the common joke is that if you're in an Indian family, you either grow up to become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or a family failure. And you can only choose one. So I was told by my grandfather, you have to become an engineer. Look at Bill Gates, he's the richest man in the world. He's a computer software engineer. You go learn computers. So for 5 years, I studied computers. I graduated from one of the top computer engineering schools. And sure enough, in 1998, I became one of the top 1% of graduates in America to get the coveted internship at Microsoft. And Bill Gates invited that new batch to his home. That is actually Bill Gates' home. There I was. I had lived up to what my grandfather had told me to do. I was there at a barbecue at Bill Gates' house, working at Microsoft. Bill Gates was making burgers and serving it to everyone. And around him were all of these geeky engineers, with the pencil protectors and eating the burger, shaking his hand. He was such a cool man. I couldn't go up to shake his hand. Don't get me wrong, I love Bill Gates. I honestly think he's one of the kindest businessmen in the world today. But I couldn't shake his hand because I had been at Microsoft then for 10 weeks, and I hated it. I had realized that I had sacrificed 5 years of my life achieving my grandfather's goal, not my goal. I hated programming. I didn't want to be an engineer. 1 week after being invited in Bill Gates' house, I got myself fired from Microsoft. I literally deliberately failed at my job, got caught playing computer games in the office by my manager. I was too chicken to tell him that I was going to quit. And I didn't want my parents to know that I quit because they paid for that university degree. So I just got myself fired. And I went on to find my way and do what really mattered. You see, what happened is that modern goal setting leads us astray. And this is the trap that so many people get into when they start their entrepreneurship journey. When they join a company, they are not living their own goal. They are living the goal of their parents, or their culture, or their grandparents, or what their teachers told them. I did that. I wasted 5 years of my life. But if you look at the people who are really changing the world, they have a completely different approach. Didn't this man say, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition? They know who you want to become. So what you want to pay attention to is what you do with your dash. Let me tell you what your dash is. Someday, we are all going to die. And when we die, if you read your Wikipedia page or you look at your tombstone, it's going to do that. John Doe, the day you were born, the day you die. And in between those two numbers is your dash. Your dash represents your life. Your dash represents every memory, every success, every failure, your suffering, your accomplishment. That dash can be long, that dash can be short, but the problem is, so many of us waste our dash by giving it away to someone else. I gave up 5 years of my dash to my grandfather, God bless him, but he wasn't me, and he had different goals. Are you working on something you love? This is what Muhammad Alaba said yesterday. Do what you love. And to do what you love, you got to respect your dash and ensure that you give it everything. Khalil Gibran said something very similar. All work is empty, save when there is love. And when you work with love, you bind yourself, to one another, and to God. Work cannot be about hard work. Work cannot be about living someone else's mission. Work has to be an expression of your love for your life. That, my friends, is what we mean by self-transcendence. That is what we mean by Rule 2. Your life is not about you, rather your life is about the lives of everyone you touch. Now let me explain. How does working on what you love evolve into touching other people's lives? I believe that God put us on earth with a very delicate plan. And the plan is this. Our job here is not just to benefit ourselves. Our job is to benefit humanity. In my book, I coined a word called Humanity Plus Companies. Humanity Plus Companies are companies that are actually doing good for the world. They're working on new products, new services, not just for shareholder value, but to ensure that our children's children inherit a better planet than we have. See, Terence McKenna, the great English philosopher, said, capitalism is a loaded gun pointed to the head of humanity. I love capitalism, but capitalism has a dark side. Capitalism tricks us. It tricks us that we are adding value to the world when we invent a soft drink, put it in a red can, associate the word happiness to it, forget to tell people that it's really high fructose corn syrup, and seduce billions of people to drink it, and hire millions of people to market it. Does that poison the human species and create pollution? Or is that actually pushing the human race forward? We get recruited into bad ideas for the sake of capitalism. To be Humanity Plus means that your business is thinking more than investor value. As Gary said yesterday, that whole system has to come tumbling down. 99% of those businesses are going to fail. And I love investors, but investors trick you to look at purely ROI and not the more important question, which is, if this business is successful, will my children live in a better world? Do you agree with me? So how do you do that? Because it's not easy. And this is why I believe there's a grand plan in life. And the clue lies in what I call your wounding. We were talking about Rumi. There's a great quote by Rumi that says this: the wound is the place where light enters. Your wound is where your light enters you. Rumi also said, if you are afraid of a hard rub, how then will you become a polished gem? Rumi talks about suffering as a way to discover who you truly are. And I want you all to think back of a time when you suffered. This was my time. 20 years ago, when I was living in the United States, I had graduated with an American degree. I had worked for Microsoft. Yes, I got fired. That's a different part of the story. But I had worked for Microsoft. I had a degree. I had a great job. I was married. My wife was there. And everything was going well. I wanted my children born in America. I wanted my kid to be an American. My wife was European. I was Malaysian. We were living in New York. And one day, I showed up at JFK Airport. And I got called out. And I was put in a line. And the guy at the airport told me, "You are now on special registration." And I asked him, what is special registration? And he explained to me that, for lack of a better terms, it is a Muslim watch list. The exact same type of Muslim watch list that Donald Trump wanted to bring back, but was shot down, that existed in 2003. I don't blame anyone. It was 2 years after September 11, and people were afraid. But because I was born in a Muslim country, Malaysia, and I had a Malaysian passport, I was one of 82,000 Muslim men. I'm not Muslim, but you cannot identify someone by their beliefs. I grew up in a Hindu family, but I was put on that watch list, and all of a sudden, even though I'd lived in America for a very long time, I could no longer live normally. Every 4 weeks, I had to report to the government, stand in line for 4 hours to be fingerprinted, to have my photograph taken, and to give them my credit card so they could watch and monitor all my purchases. Every 4 weeks. I couldn't board a plane without a 2-hour interrogation. I couldn't get off a plane without a 2-hour interrogation. All of a sudden, the country I loved was treating me like I was on parole. And I still love America, and I don't blame anyone for what happened. It was a different geopolitical time. But that was my suffering. After 9 years, I had to leave the US, and I moved back to Malaysia, the country I was trying to escape from. And that's where Mindvalley is now a Malaysian company. But I don't regret that, because through that suffering, I found my mission. And my mission became to help create more unity in the world. In our company, even though we're an education company, our number one value is unity. How can we create a more diverse company? How can we unify the world? We're actually right now working on a flag for planet Earth. We employ people from 49 different countries. But I do it all because of my daughter, Eve. See, my wife is white, I'm Indian. If you look at my kids, they basically therefore look Middle Eastern. And my kids are badasses. Eve wants to grow up to be a Mexican wrestler. But I don't want my kids ending up on some stupid watch list because of the color of their skin or where they happen to be born. And so this became part of my mission. So I had my product, which was an education product, but to embody that mission, I changed the rules of how we hired. We started hiring globally. Today, 47 different nationalities work at Mindvalley. When Donald Trump spoke of the border wall, my team decided that as a company, we should stand up against that. We should stand up against the modern Muslim ban. So for example, can I play a quick video for you? This was a simple video that we created as a company to represent our stand, to represent our mission. Just watch this for 2 minutes.
Don't let bullies force you to sit down.
To tell you, you're being too political or unpatriotic.
When you speak your truth.
To tell you, you can't stand tall.
Or that you don't belong here. Speak up. Rise up.
Unite.
And to those who dare to stand,
Look, I'm not running a company that's political. I'm just running an education company. But I can take a stand. Because within your suffering, within that wound, as Rumi said, is that light. Viktor Frankl said, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds meaning. What can you make your business, your company stand for? Maybe as a woman, you were told you were not good enough. Can you create a company that, in a way, empowers women leadership? Maybe you were abused as a child. Can you create a company where compassion and kindness is a dominant value? How can you take your wounding and figure out where you can envision a world where that wounding doesn't have to touch other people? That becomes your stand. That becomes part of your mission. The pain that you went through in life are the breadcrumbs to the mission and the vision and the meaning that you bring to the world. And know that in our world today, people love it when you have a stand. You've heard Simon Sinek say this in his famous TED Talk. Nobody cares what you do. They care why you do it. So the most exciting people in the world, really, if you think about it, do not have a career. What they have is a mission. Elon Musk's mission is to make mankind an interplanetary species. Richard Branson's mission is actually about great service and joy and happiness. Arianna Huffington's mission right now with Thrive Global is to encourage wellness practices. The greatest people in the world today are operating from mission. Do not make the mistake, people. Do not make that mistake of thinking that your business is about purely shareholder value. Today, even when I invest in a company, I don't ask myself, if this company is successful, will it double my dollar? Rather, I say, if this company is successful, will it make the world better for my daughter? And we need entrepreneurs who start thinking about this. Somebody asked me once, I was on the Tom Bilyeu show, Impact Theory, and he asked me, are you an entrepreneur? And I said, no. I no longer call myself an entrepreneur. Because honestly, let's be honest, it's a bullshit term, right? You can be an Uber driver, you're working for yourself, great, you're an entrepreneur. You can be a freelancer on 99 Designs, make $100 a month, you're an entrepreneur. And then again, it creates this silly pedestal, as Gary Vaynerchuk said, where you're cool if you're an entrepreneur, you're not as cool if you work for a company. Let's just get rid of that word. So I don't call myself an entrepreneur, the spectrum is simply too wide. So then Tom Bilyeu asked me, so then who are you? Are you the Mind Valley founder? Are you a businessman? And I said, no, because you see, if you define who you are by your business, what happens when your business fails? Do you disappear from reality? So who we are really is our wounding, is our stand. Our stand is who we are. It's what we believe in. So one of the biggest questions you have to ask yourself to truly be great in this world, to truly make a dent, is what do I believe in? What is that gift that I'm here to give the world? What did my suffering wake me up to want to heal for humanity? Who are you? And if you walk away from this presentation with this answer, to some degree, you help move up to self-transcendence. You help find that sense of meaning. And so as we put it all together, one final word of advice. The heart, they say, is the most selfish organ in the human body, because the heart takes all the good blood for itself, and then all the rest of the blood goes to all the other organs, the selfish bastard. But if the heart didn't do that, the heart would die. And if the heart died, it takes all the other organs with it. So as you think about your entrepreneurship journey, you gotta put you first. Yes, your job is to heal the world, is to give to humanity, but you gotta make sure that you're taking care of your bliss, your health, your heart. And as you do that, you wanna make sure that you are now building businesses, building products, building services that help create a better world, not just today, but multiple generations down. In summary, know that entrepreneurship, as we practice it here in this country, which is one of the wealthiest countries in the world right now, we're among the luckiest 1% of the human population. It has to be about self-actualization and self-transcendence. You want to bring in the tools of blissiping. You want to bring in the tools of envisioning to ensure that you're on the right track. And do not do not go back to the old game of entrepreneurship, because I don't believe that that game creates the most healthy human or the most healthy world. We can wake up to a more enhanced, enlightened model for entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, my name is Shahad.
Shahad?
It's honey in Hindu, right?
Oh, that's so funny. How do I spell it? S-H?
S-H-A-H-A-D.
S-H-A-H-A-D.
Yeah, so I was also an engineer, but I dropped out after 2 years.
Oh, good for you, Shahad.
Started a business.
What business do you do?
Food and beverage online for now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.